I was raised amongst hustlers, thieves, and killers. Banana niggas who seem and breed gorillas. I done seen the realest erased by cowards. Cardboard boxes, candles placed by flowers. Jakes by towers with rifles beaming in yards. Muslims, the bloods, kings, even the guards. Building the ciphers. Walking, building with lifers. Late night playing CeeLo in the building with dices. I feel I'm the nicest. Why? Cause I paint pictures with coke lines. And I quote lines from saint scriptures. I hate snitches. I make bitches lose focus. I flow short cause I'm raw like Peru coke is. Dudes know this, and my heart is official. These niggas is artificial. My art is official.
Peace. Welcome back to the Urban Echoes Network podcast. I'm your host, Kamathi Kama, a.k.a. Ramel the Writer. And in the building, we got somebody special in here tonight. We got the one and only Mysonne.
What's going on,
family?
I'm blessed, black, and highly favored.
I respect that. I thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Again, we're going to get right into it. For those that don't really know about you or know about your notoriety, tell them about yourself.
Where do I start? I've been started out in hip-hop in the late 90s, 1998. I was signed to Violator, Def Jam, RIP to the great late Chris Lighty, who signed me early through just battle rapping in the street. I was young, grew up in the Bronx, and I got signed in late 98. And just battle rap. I went, shout out to the Rough Riders. We used to have ciphers on 125th Street and ciphers in the Bronx. And I got pretty much discovered in the cipher that happened at Puff Daddy's old restaurant, Justin's, that used to be in the city. Me and Sean had a legendary battle where a lot of industry people was there. And from that battle, I had a bidding war, with like 10 different labels, and Chris Lighty was the person that I decided to sign to.
Story. Mysonne looked at me and was like, "Big homie, I got this." And he just looked at me like, "Nigga, you got a deal already? Please." And
let me just take this over.
And like, I swear to God, we communicated like that. Like, there was no two-way back then.
Right.
But he looked like let me
do this.
Right.
And I remember them going back and forth. And I remember after that, the rumor was that they said Sean could never battle on the street again.
Wow.
Because, Mysonne
got him out of there?
Yeah, Mysonne got him out of there.
Yeah, shout out to Mysonne, man.
Yeah, he was a battle rapper.
Shortly after being signed, I was locked up and ended up blowing trial for armed robbery that I actually never committed and serving 7 out of a 7 to 14-year sentence. Right when I got signed. So I never actually even got a chance to release an album, but by the grace of God, I released, certain singles and verses that carried on throughout, the years actually. So I spent 7 years in the state penitentiary. Came home in 2006. In 2006, tried to revitalize my hip hop career. Had some good moments in that still, still did a lot of classic stuff, but I was just geared more towards, engaging with community, engaging with youth, and trying to change the mentality, because I went to jail at 21 years old. And I just realized it was way too many young black and brown boys in prison for dumb shit, for lack of knowledge, for being raised wrong, being taught wrong, glorifying the wrong shit. I just seen that it was like a revolving door, and a lot of some of the most brilliant men I ever met is in prison, and they charged me to come home and tell the truth to these young boys. I had a lot of good mentors who took me under their wing, because I was always a young brother that listened. I wasn't one of the hothead. I always paid attention. If you knew more than me, then I would listen to you. If you showed me that you deserved to be followed, lead, then I follow. You know what I'm saying? I knew how to lead as well as I knew how to follow. And, that was always one of the core values that I had and one of my attributes. So when I came home, I just wanted to give it back to these kids. So, you know, the trajectory and just the street aspect that I started out rapping in, I wanted to change it. Because what I started realizing was a lot of these young kids that was in jail was influenced by shit I was saying and doing. You know, I remember a young kid came to me and told me he did his first robbery to my verse. And when you young and in the streets, that shit sound cool and you laugh about it. But when you really sitting in the cell knowing that you influence somebody to be incarcerated, that you influence negativity, it didn't really sit right with me as I started understanding that reality. So I wanted my verses to inspire you to do something different. So, you know, I came home with a different mind state. You know, even my music, the message changed. It wasn't geared more towards violence. It was geared more towards education, street educational. You know, it still was the reality of where we come from, and it was still relevant and able to connect with the kids in the street, but it was just on a different level, and it was, you know, it was a higher frequency. You know, and
not to cut your wisdom, but you mentioned about being incarcerated and the fact that you being incarcerated and seeing something like that, and the fact that you was like, now I'm coming home. What are some of the principles that you believe you learned in prison that obviously that translated to you coming home and you saying, I want to teach and give back and not basically destroy and give individuals something that's going to hurt them, but give something that's going to help them?
Well, I realized that I had got tricked, right? When you sitting in prison, before you get in prison, there's a glorification of prison. There's a glorification of the people that come from prison. You know, I remember being a teenager and seeing some of the OGs come home, and they had this glow, and everybody was glorifying them, and they made it seem like prison was a rite of passage. Like if you didn't go through prison, then you weren't quote unquote real. You couldn't get levels of respect. So in certain ways, we idolized and wanted to go to prison to prove that we deserve levels of respect,
stamp.
so we can get that stamp.
Exactly.
You know, and when I got there, it was completely the opposite. Nobody wanted to be there. I didn't want to be around a bunch of dudes all day. It wasn't a woman there. I was having to have intimate settings and close proximity to people that I probably would never talk to, that I didn't even like. Right, so they forced me to be around people that I probably would never talk to in the street.
They don't tell you about that,
you know, and they don't tell you about that. They don't tell you that the COs come in and strip you when they want to, and you got to bend over, and they looking in your ass and digging through your property and flipping your cell when they feel like it, and disrespecting your family on visits. Like, they don't tell you none of these things, you know. And then so when I got in there and I started realizing that I was tricked. You know, that, and we all, and it wasn't just their fault, because they brought into the same philosophy and false narrative that I did. So we had learned wrong. So we had to unlearn certain things and then reteach. So I came home to reteach, man. I wanted everybody to know that there was nothing to glorify about going to jail, that there was nothing cool about being in jail. You know I had little brothers that were paying attention to me and watching me, and I didn't want to come home looking like I was glorifying that. I wanted them to understand that there was the worst shit I've ever been through, and I would never want you to go there. There's nothing cool about it. It's nothing tough about it. There's a bunch of suckers in there. It's the 90% of the people is in there. It's not stand up. There's about 2 or 3 dudes in there that have any level of integrity. You know, so your circle is small. You know, it's just not what they try to paint and portray it to the public.
So I wanted to ask you, with that being said, I'm asking you this because I'm going to give a quick story about myself. And I spent a considerable amount of time in jail. I spent 24 years in prison, violent crime. And again, when you first get in, you know, you go through your whole shit. You got to fight, you got to go through your bullshit. But then it was at a point where I went to SAG. And I went to SAG because they tried to say we was doing something with the clotheslines, and they ended up putting us in SAG for months. So we was under investigation. And as a result of us being in investigation, that's when I finally started to have that breakthrough. That's when I finally had enough time to sit down. Because again, you know, when you in there and you just going through the mix, you don't have that time. You got the time, but you don't got the time because you're constantly moving. When I was in SAG, I had that time to just sit, reflect, soul search. And that's when I began to that's when I would say that it was the first steps of me awakening to be like, nah, did you have that type of moment, or do you believe it was more transitional? Or was it a moment where you could be like, yeah, I knew from this point that it was like, yeah, nah, from here, I'm changing, or I'm here, I'm thinking different?
I think for me, right, I think God blessed me in a certain way, right? There was a time that had I went to prison, I would have became prison. right? I knew what I would have had to become to survive inside of it. I would have had a mind state. Well, this is my home. This is what it is. I'm gonna make sure I'm comfortable. I'm gonna make sure respect. I'm gonna move. That would have been
adopt that environment.
I would have became that environment. But by the grace of God, by the time I was going to prison, I had started to live. I had just came from the Super Bowl. I was in the studio with the best artists. I had traveled outside of the country. I started seeing things, and I understood that prison was not my reality. So I didn't go there to adapt to prison. I made prison adapt to me. I wasn't part of the prison politics. By the grace of God, I didn't have to be engaged in prison to survive. I didn't have to make money. I didn't have to hustle. I didn't have to figure these things out. You know, I had resources and people outside. So my mind state was never in prison. I came in prison outside. Like, I'm not getting involved with all that shit. OG pulled me to the side and said, you don't fuck with the gay niggas, don't gamble, and don't get involved with no drugs, and you're going to be good in prison. You know what I'm saying? And mind your business. And those things stuck to me. So I picked my own surroundings. I picked my own friends. I didn't need to join no gangs. I didn't need no protection from nobody. I was always a stand-up individual, and I had 3 or 4 people in pretty much either jail I was in that we was close to. We knew we had each other's back. We moved a certain way. And every day I said, this is not my reality. I'm not involved in no prison politics. I don't want to care about none of that shit. Leave that over there. My mind state is, first of all, they already took my freedom from me for some shit I didn't do. So now, every day that I don't grow or learn something, then the system wins. So I'm not gonna allow you to beat me. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? I had already watched. I seen how it transformed a lot of my friends, and they became indoctrinated in prison to where they couldn't even survive outside because they made prison their life. And they came out and they brought prison outside. You understand what I'm saying? I never wanted to be that. By the grace of God, I had the opportunities and resources. Now, had I been 17 or 18 and never had a record deal and all I knew was the street, and I came in there and it was just me and my mans, and I ain't have no resources, nobody was going to bring me no packages and all that, and I had to fend for self, I would have been a monster in jail because I would have known that this is what my reality is. But fortunately for me, that wasn't my reality. So it was the first day I was in there and I was just watching shit and people trying to get me involved in this. I remember a lot of, the Bloods. I was living around the Soundview area, so a lot of the top Bloods and all of these was my friends. So they was trying to, you could be the big. I was like, I'm not being no big homie. I don't want none of that shit. I'm doing my bid by myself. I'm still
disrespect to them, but you was like, I'm doing me.
Yeah, y'all my man. It's like, you my man. I'm not going to the yard every time some nigga that I don't know got a beef. I'm never gonna move like that. I don't want nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying? They respected it, and I just moved on my own accord, and by the grace of God, I came in with that mind state. So every day I was working out, I was reading, I was writing rhymes, I played basketball, I stayed to myself, had my little routine that I did with myself, and then I was focusing on every day on when I come home.
I respect that. And you just mentioned right now about, which I wanted to talk about, which you kind of touched on it, is the fact that, when you said you went inside there, you had, somebody came up, pulled your coat and was like, listen, this is how you make some moves up inside here. I had the same thing. Like when I went inside, I had an individual, shout out to Psych J, and he was like, he pulled me aside, was like, this is how things move. Little thing happened, just a quick example. I'm walking by these kids in the cell banging out. Now I'm new, I don't know what's going on. So I'm nosy. I'm walking by, I walk by the cell, I double take, walk back, come here. He was like, yo, you snitching. Now, something like that, I'm not registering that. Yeah, I'm not, because I don't know the terrain yet. Yeah, so when he telling me this, but I'm saying that to say, I had somebody that was like, you know what, listen, man, I'm gonna kind of give you the landscape. I'm gonna tell you how you move in an environment like this. Meaning that you got somebody who was older teaching somebody who's younger. Do you believe, being that we are a little bit older, do you believe you have a responsibility to the younger generation? And if you do, what is that responsibility?
I mean, we definitely have a responsibility to the younger. I hate when I hear older in quote unquote OGs saying that these kids don't listen and all that, because I don't believe that. I believe when you manifest and you show that you deserve to be listened to, then they listen.
Absolutely.
When you present yourself in a manner like a man, a kid is going to realize he's dealing with a man.
Absolutely.
Right. So if you're not presenting yourself like a man, if you're doing the same things that they're doing and you moving in the same way that they're moving, then they don't have a reason to respect you. You know what I'm saying? So I always moved like a man. So every time I was in the presence of a kid, I don't care if he was the toughest kid or what it was, they understood that they was dealing with a man. I treated them like a man, and therefore they recognized that there was a knowledge that I have and a wisdom that I had, and then there was this ability of being a man that they wanted to attach themselves to.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So I always felt the need to give it back to the young kids and pay it forward. You know, and if we don't, you know, then what have we actually accomplished? Exactly. If the kids and the people coming after us make the same mistakes we made, because we all make mistakes. Absolutely. But nobody that's in your circumference, no younger kid in your circumference should make the same mistakes you made, because that means you failed.
And that's some of the things that, again, I talk to people about, and I say that because I believe that. I believe when I say that I owe. Some people say that I owe because it's the guilt from what I've done. Some people say that I owe because it's the guilt of me living the street life. I believe that I owe because of the fact that, just like how you mentioned, I influence people. I was the type of individual when in certain environments, if I'm selling drugs, people watching. If I'm doing certain things, people watching. So now that if I had that influence on them to do that negative, I believe as the man that I am today, I have the responsibility and the influence to try to teach them something positive.
That's a fact.
You know what I'm saying? So just little things like that. Now, I want to talk about, again, the record career real quick, because I know that you're still going in. What's going on your plate right now? What are you doing right now?
I mean, as far as music, I'm currently trying to put together a project. You know, music for me is my passion, right? It's something that I would do for free. You know, just by the grace of God, I was able to create and start a career off of it. But, you know, music for me is about feeling. It's about emotion. It's about substance. And I don't just make music just to make music. I have to have something to say. Absolutely. I got to feel like it's something that needs to be said. I got to feel like I'm saying something that's filling a certain void. So that's my creative process, you know, and a lot of times, especially in this era, I don't believe music is substance based.
And I was going to get to that, and I was trying to be like, but I was going to ask, like, what do you think about because again, I'm older. Back in my day, you had the conscious music. You had different areas where you can go to.
Genres,
but it seemed like today, everything is kind of not, it's like a gumbo. Yeah. It's more like just kind of one lane, trap, drill, you know what I'm saying? And it's not more of that conscious. And like you're saying, when you coming up, I've listened to you. You saying something with some substance. Yeah. Why do you think the industry, or why do you think that we went in this direction? And do you believe that we can turn the tide from this direction? And if so, how?
Well, I think you can. I think what happened is the internet and social media, right? It's like boxing, right? When you look at Jake Paul and you look at Tyson and you look at the internet created a superstar from nothing, right? He didn't have to go through the process or anything. And then when everybody else started realizing, I don't need to do this. I don't really need to be talented. Not to say he can't fight with it, but I don't need to have levels of talent of the people that they told me, right?
You don't gotta put in the work.
I don't really have to put in the work. I can put a video or I can put a song. If the song gets catchy and it goes, then that's all that matters. It's not about skill, right? Hip hop is I think the only genre, just the only thing, period, where you don't have to have a skill, right? It's some artists that's not even skilled. They don't really have any skill. They just are entertaining, right? They don't have a skill level. They don't rap good. They don't do anything. They just entertain people. So what they did was muddy the waters, and it watered down what music is, culture. Right? And it made real artists, it turned off real artists, because it's like, I'm not competing with that. I'm not even trying to compete with that, because that we don't even do the same thing. So if you put me in a category with that, that's a disrespect. Like, I sit down and I take the time to create something. I take the time to think and substance and create something. Like, I was having this conversation, shout out to my brother Locksmith, we just did this song together, and we were just talking about how we used to want to be challenged. Like when you rap with somebody and you heard their verse, you was like, damn, I gotta come hard, right? And I don't think it's far in between where I get that. So it's hard for me to feel motivated to rap, right? It's very rare that I go on the internet and anything and I hear somebody rap and be like, nah, he challenged me. Now let me go write something because you know what I'm saying? I gotta pick it up, like you know what I'm saying? And I don't think that's not even the goal anymore. The goal is just how do I make money? Once it became how do I make money and not that I'm the best and I can out rap you and I can be more creative than you and I can do shit that nobody else does. Once the goal stop being that, then what happens is the creative artists stop feeling like they really had a space. Yeah, poison. You know? So it's like why I'm not wasting my time to do that. Like I was playing music for my friend yesterday and he was like, yo, why you don't put this out? Yo, this shit's I'm like, because I don't feel that they can receive it. I don't even feel like there is
the culture as a whole is not going to basically receive it because that's not what we're being taught to receive now.
They're not going to push because they purposely, the algorithm doesn't want that, right?
The narrative is
violence, is killing, it's just entertainment, it's doing shock value, is all of that. It's not you actually saying something of substance that people will listen to and be like, damn. You know, every time I drop something, the comments just be like, damn, we don't got music like this. Yo, this shit almost made me cry. It made me think. It made me do all this. Why we don't have music like that? And I don't know why. You know, I know. I actually do know why. Because the labels and whatever, they don't have to work. Yeah. Right? They don't have to. Now, if you got somebody, if you don't got nobody, if you got somebody that got a buzz on the internet and he put out a song that's a jingle, there's some shit that's really nothing, and you see he got 1 million views, you just say, okay, we're gonna promote the song. We're gonna make sure that 20 million people get it, and we're gonna take our percentage. That's it. And you just keep putting, and that's it. And we just keep looking for microwave artists. We don't have to
microwave. Shit.
That's it. We just
1 minute ding and it's done.
That's it. We're not sitting here trying to cook up no real meal. Nobody want to cook that Thanksgiving meal. You know what I'm saying? That stick to your ribs
deep.
meal.
I hear that. That's crazy.
You know, so they don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's deep. Now, with that being said, I know that you are heavily involved in activism work. Would you care to talk about that? Because again, instead of me speaking about the things, I would prefer you to, again, enlighten the public about your activism work.
Well, I started out doing activism in, I want to say about 2013, 2014. And started based off it was based off Trayvon. Trayvon Martin was the first level of activism that I got into is when I was doing we were shooting a web series and I was in Florida when he was given the verdict for George Zimmerman. And I'm in my hotel room, you know, I'm just automatically thinking there's no way that he's not gonna be found guilty of this. You know, and I remember hearing him say he wasn't guilty. And for some reason, I just started crying. I don't know why. It really like touched me in a different way. I looked at his mother, her walking out the courtroom, and I remember my son was around that age. You know what I'm saying? My son was like 16 or 15 years old, and I was like, damn. Like
you seen him?
I said, wow, that could have been my son.
Seen him?
You know what I'm saying? And I kept saying to myself, like, what do I say to my son? And I created this spoken word piece that I actually shot a video for. As soon as I got back, I went back. We left 2 days after that, and we shot the video. And I wrote the song on the way home. We was driving. We drove from Florida all the way down there. So I wrote it, came back, and shot it. And that was the first time that I felt like I needed to be active and I needed to speak out on behalf of things that were going on in our society. And then I joined this organization called the Gathering for Justice, and which was Harry Belafonte's organization, which was the executive director of it was my sister Carmen Perez, and Tamika Mallory was with Nan, and she had joined the Gathering for Justice, so she introduced me to them, and I was doing inside prison work. I was going to the detention centers, and I was teaching I was teaching music as an alternative to violence. So I had a course inside the detention center, and I will never forget, we was leaving the detention center because you couldn't have your phone inside there. And when I left, our phones were blowing up. And Eric Gardner had just got killed. And they sent us the video of Eric Gardner. And Carmen called a big rally, with the rest of the Gang for Justice. And we did this big rally, and we was on 42nd Street. And I never forget, it was so many people out there. It was hundreds of thousands. And we sat in the middle of the highway, like blocking the bridge to go to Jersey. And I never forget that. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I seen so many people say justice, and I was like, I felt so at home in that space.
This is my lane, right?
Yeah, I was like, this is what I want. Like, I want to be around people that are not okay with shit just not being right. People that want to fight for equity and justice and all that. And from that day on, man, I continued on. I was with the Justice League until about from 2014, 2015 to about 2017. They did Tamika and Carmen and my other sister Linda. They went on and formed the Women's March, and that was one of the biggest. It was the biggest single day protest in the history of America. Wow. And I was the security for that. So watching them move all around states and just galvanizing and moving, I started to learn about my own leadership qualities in that space. And then we went on to form an organization called Until Freedom, which, I'm one of the co-founders along with Tamika, Linda, and my brother Angelo Pinto. We formed our own organization because we just felt like activism, we wanted to be culturally relevant in activism. We just felt like there's so many different legacy organizations, from NAACP to, Reverend R. Sharpton's NAN to the Urban League and all of these places. But I never felt that those spaces fit me. I didn't see nobody that looked like me. I didn't see nobody that came from where I came from. But I knew it was a lot of us that wanted to be in this movement, wanted to have a voice, but we didn't fit. We didn't seem like we fit in that criteria. And there was a lot of times when people would see me, they'd be like, yo, I want to be involved with the movement. I don't know how to. The street dudes. And I'm like, all you got to want to do is fight for your people. You know what I'm saying? You don't got to look a certain way. You don't need a bow tie. You ain't had to graduate college or be a preacher. Like, you can stand in this movement just as you are, But there was no vision of that for them. So I was like, we wanted to create an organization that showed different people from different walks of life who had the same ideology of what justice and equity looked like. So we created Until Freedom, and we've been moving ever since. We started Until Freedom in 2020, and 2019 actually, and then in 2020, the first real thing we did was Breonna Taylor. And then we started working on a George Floyd, and we've been doing a lot of different, direct response and immediate response and fighting for civil rights activations ever since.
I respect it. Now, with that being said, I wanted to ask the challenges, because I'm saying myself, I came home from prison. I've been home now coming up on 4 years. This is going to be my 4th year. And I came home as well, and I said, I'm going to get into the activism. I'm going to get out there. I want to help. I want to give back. I feel like I owe. But I know the challenges that I faced. I know the challenges that I faced as far as I see bullshit. So when you have individuals who aren't what they call lived experience, when you have individuals who aren't from the streets, aren't from that type of environment, they may not be able to detect certain shit that we're going to be able to detect. So one of my challenges is that if I'm in an organization and I'm seeing that, my nigga, you just running game or you just doing some bullshit, it's hard for me to get behind you and back you 100%. And I'm gonna help you. I'm not gonna turn away to help, but it's hard for me to see somebody who's not putting forth the effort, and I feel like I'm putting more effort than you. So that's one of my challenges as far as me helping out. What are some of the challenges that you faced as far as activism work that are some of the challenges that you either overcame or do you feel that you still struggle with as far as helping individuals?
Well, it's a lot of challenges, man. The main challenge is they just show you the bells and whistles, right? They show you Malcolm. They romanticize Martin Luther King. They romanticize Malcolm X. They don't show you that their own people hated them, right? They don't tell you that Malcolm X couldn't even get buried and nobody wanted to bury or do his funeral inside Harlem. Wow. Right? They don't tell you that both of them died with no money. They don't tell you that Martin Luther King was labeled as a terrorist and one of the most dangerous men in America. But right now, and they got holidays and they celebrate and they tell you he had a dream, but they don't tell you that he woke up from that dream. His home people was calling him coons and all that. They don't have these conversations. So you just be like, I want to do what they do. And then when you get in there and you fighting and they praise you, and the next thing you know, you stealing. You stole money from the people. You're profiting off the pain of people, and you profiting off the death. You're ambulance changer. You the worst person in the world, and you ain't none of this shit. But this is what they want to tear you down because for some reason you amassed a level of success and a level of notoriety that they don't believe you should have. So they come up with every conspiracy theory in the world to tear you down, and you don't see that. So that's one of the biggest challenges when you got to fight for people that's trying to kill you. That's literally you fighting for your people, and it's like you in a boat and they putting holes in the boat, and you like, bro, what
you trying to save them?
I'm trying to save. Why are you putting holes? This we all gonna drown. What do you think is going on here? Yeah. So that's the biggest challenge. The other challenge was just trying to show that you belonged inside them. People just see the you on the news and you do this and people celebrate you. They don't realize that I walked into spaces as the only dude from jail that was from the hood, right? And I'm walking in with scholars, and this one is from he's the preacher, and this one is just graduated from an HBCU, and I'm just came home from prison. And there are people that let me know that there was room and there was space for me, and made me comfortable, because it was times where I didn't speak as well as this person. I don't do all of that stuff. I don't, you know what I'm saying? So I had to feel my own confidence. I had to create my own space in my own lane in my own way in this movement. So, it's been very challenging. It's still challenging in that way, in that regards. But, when you feel like there's a calling on your life and you're doing God's work, then, you just find a way to get up it's a lot of times that I be like, I'm not sitting there fighting for these people. Y'all go do it. You know what I'm saying? Since I'm stealing and I'm lying and all this, y'all do it. But then what happens is, God be like, this is what I called you to do. So you can't walk away from it.
Can't walk away. You got to stand up for that. Principles. Obviously, again, different generations. The generation that we have today, the generation from the past, what are some of the glaring, because obviously the subtle, but what are some of the glaring differences that you see, not just necessarily in the music industry, but I'm talking about culturally the mindset of younger men to older men. Like with me, I'm going to give you an example. Back in my days, everything was quiet. People was purposely not trying to be on the internet. People was not, I say not internet, people wasn't purposely trying to put their name out there like that because what came with that. But in today's time, everything, like you just said, social media, getting likes, getting the follows, getting the memes, getting all these things. What are some of the principles that you believe changed from growing up to today for the younger generation?
I think there's no more principles, right? I think it's all about notoriety, like you said. I think it's all about you can buy respect in this era. You couldn't buy respect when you actually had to earn respect.
That's deep.
You know what I'm saying? There was, when we was younger, there wasn't, but he a rat, he a snitch, but he got money though. Nah, bro. If you wasn't a stand-up individual, you couldn't even stand in the spaces, right? Nobody cared about what you had, and you couldn't even get it because once they tagged you as a lame, and once they knew that you wasn't who you said you was, then you was etched out.
That's it.
That don't work no more. Right now, you could buy anything you want. You
could buy back into it.
You could buy right back into it. A dude could be a hustler. He could tell on everybody, come outside and have money, and these people would die for him.
Just embrace them.
You just embrace them, and that wasn't a thing in our era. I was just, my man, shout out to Black Hassan, 110th Street. He was just on the internet and he was talking. He made a statement. And he was like, we always talk about these kids, and it was worse when we was young. If you look at the amount of murders, it was double and triple. And when you really sit there and think about it, it was because there was more. It was more, I think we dealt with higher levels of poverty. I think we dealt with everybody was trying to create a space. I think now people are just murdering each other just for fame, right? To be known as, like, they murder each other on camera and talking about it, right? So I think it's not even about beef. It's not even, I don't remember me wanting to kill nobody at 12 and 13, right? I just don't. Like, maybe it was a couple, but the people around us, we were still playing video games and shit at 12 and 13. At 15, we came on the porch, we started hustling, but we didn't want to kill each other at 12 or 13. We wasn't on the internet, we spinning, we got our guns, we going looking for, it just wasn't that era. So I think now, you know, the disregard for just human life is decreasing at a younger age. Like, I think, and then these kids is dealing with levels of trauma that I never had that level of trauma. I never wanted to kill myself. None of this shit. Like, I never was suicidal. When I'm listening to these kids at 12 and 13, I can't identify that, because the people in my circle, we didn't want to kill. We wanted to get some money.
So it's like they grew up too fast.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's like, how do you have this much stress and pain at 14, 13 years old? Like, where y'all get all that from? We didn't have, and we had less. I think we had less. Like, my mother was on drugs and all this shit, but I didn't want to kill me. I wanted to change my circumstance. I wanted to give me some girls.
Definitely trying to hang up.
No, I wasn't trying to, like, I think there's so much trauma, and I think because they've had it easier, like, there's the saying, they said that hard times create strong men, and good times create weak men. And I think these kids are so weak. They haven't been challenged by anything. The shit that they feel is a challenge. I was like, yo, at 13 and 14, I was doing quadruple that. And I don't even understand how at 20 something, you not doing the shit I was doing at 14. And you stressed out about what? I don't even understand. About losing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so just, I think in that regard, there's a big difference in those things right there. You know, I think a lot of people tell me, the principles that we grew up in is dead. It's like they're dead to somebody, not to me. I'm going to always have my own principle, because those principles carry me through life. Without having those principles and understanding how to move and what dignity and respect and integrity was, I wouldn't have survived. You know, and they've created spaces where they say that those things are toxic now. Right? Like the quote unquote toxic masculinity that they talk about is the only way that I survived in prison, right? You understanding that I'm not here to cause any problem. I'm not trying to transgress against you, but I'm going to defend my life with every inch of my being.
Absolutely.
The minute that you transgress against me, I'm going to try to win.
Absolutely.
I need you to understand that. But that right there is, you have to have this. It's barbaric. That's how we had to survive in the jungle. That's it. Right? There was levels of respect that you gave a man, because you understand if you didn't, it could cause your life.
Consequences.
They don't have that no more. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't even understand, but this is where we are.
Yeah. Question. I asked people this because I wanted to just get your perspective on this. The difference. Do you believe that there's a difference between a drug dealer and a hustler?
Of course. A drug dealer could just sell drugs. A hustler could sell anything.
No, I'm saying that because I tell people, some people be like, nah, and I said the same thing, and somebody hit me with that. And they said, when you think about the mentality, and I'm glad you caught on it quick.
Yeah,
and
I say that all the time.
Yeah, and some people was telling me, that's all they hustle. And I'm like, I said, it's a different mentality. Yeah. When you're dealing with somebody who's a drug dealer, he just sells drugs.
That's it.
But when you're dealing with somebody who's a hustler, he's flexible. He goes into an environment, I'm going to learn this terrain and I'll be able to figure it out. I'm saying that to say you have some individuals who are trapped in a box. They believe that they only can do one way, not knowing that there's so many different ways to go about things. I definitely appreciate you here. I was going to ask about that. I'm not sure if you're willing to give us a little something. I didn't know if you wanted to give us a little, I like spoken word. I like the freestyles. I'm not sure if you want to give us a little something. I would be honored if you would, even if it's just giving us a little something.
I was raised amongst hustlers, thieves, and killers. Banana niggas who semen breed gorillas. I done seen the realest erased by cowards. Cardboard boxes, candles placed by flowers. Jakes by towers with rifles beaming in yards. Muslims, the Bloods, kings, even the guards, building the ciphers. Walking, building with lifers. Late night playing CeeLo in the building with dices. I feel I'm the nicest. Why? Because I paint pictures with coke lines. And I quote lines from saint scriptures. I hate snitches. I make bitches lose focus. I flow short cause I'm raw like Peru Cocus. Dudes know this, and my heart is official. These niggas is artificial. My art is official.
Kamathi Kama here again, Urban Echoes Network podcast. We got the one and only Mysonne in the building. I'm honored. I was pleasured. I hope you can come back and do this again. I appreciate you, brother.
Let's do it. Appreciate
Thank you,
you.
man.
Yes, sir.
Again, shout out to our sponsors, Urban Echoes Network podcast, Script in the building. Peace.
Peace.